Happy New Year. I can tell you my terrible joke. I haven't seen you since last year. Oh my, I know everybody has heard that by now, but it's one of my favorite jokes of the year. So, welcome back. I know it's been a while. I have so many great requests from all of you about what you need help with and what kind of video to make. And I have to tell you, out of all the requests, it always comes back to writing. So there's a lot of grammar, obviously, when it comes to writing. So I kind of want to bring it down to a little bit of the basics when it comes to sentence structure. I think that's the best place to start off with. And of course, there's a lot more to it. So if we want some more videos, we need extra help, just let me know. This video is going to be a little bit longer than usual. I know some of you are very busy, but I didn't want to shorten this too much because there's some important information in here. So on that note, let's get started. So we're going to talk about compound and complex sentences and why they are important and why they will add some to your sentences. So let's get started, my friends. All right, I'm first going to read this to you, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it. So let's get started. You won't believe this. Yesterday, I went to the bank. Two women came in wearing disguises. They walked up to the front desk. Then they demanded money. It looked like they were pointing guns. They held the guns under their coats. I thought the guns were probably cucumbers. I wasn't afraid of cucumbers, so I grabbed my handbag tight. Then I crept up behind one of them. I swung my bag back. Then I hit the rubber on the head. So you're probably looking at the question up there that says, "What's wrong?" And you're like, probably thinking, Amanda, I don't see anything grammatically wrong. And you're right. Grammar wise, there is nothing wrong. The issue is these are called simple sentences. Now, I want to put a disclaimer out there. When you are learning a language, whether it's English or Korean or Polish, it's always best to start off with simple sentences because they are easier to understand. However, as we progress, which means we make improvement, we grow on learning English, we have to make them better. We have to add more oomph to them because using simple sentences doesn't always give us all of the information we are looking for. And I'm going to go into this with you. So let's take a look at some of the examples. John ran, Mary walked, I fell down. They're short, they're simple to the point. But if I send you an email and I said John ran, you will probably think, why is she telling me this? Who cares? Whatever. Same thing with Mary walked, I fell down. Okay, and what's your point? You can kind of look at it this way. Have you ever had a conversation with someone or even gotten an email or a text and you look at it like, okay, and do we have a point? That's what our simple sentences are. They're just quick, they're simple, but we need more information. And if we're writing a story or maybe a research paper and we're only using simple sentences, it can be so boring to read. So we want to jazz them up, add a little bam to them. All right. The first one I want to go over is compound sentences. And what are these, you might ask me, my friend? Well, we take two simple sentences and we connect them, we join them together. We join them with what is called conjunctions. Now, before you ask what are conjunctions, Amanda, you already know them. Conjunctions are and, but, yet, so. Those are conjunctions. You know what those words are. Now you've got an official title for them. And they are very important because they connect our sentences. They answer the questions of what we're looking for. Why? What? Get to the point. Who cares? They're putting it all together so we understand our simple sentence more. So let's take a look at this example. We've got two different simple sentences here. Number one, I passed your house today. Number two, I noticed the roof had blown off. So if I sent you a text and said I passed your house today, you might answer, great. Okay, whatever. Um, but maybe you're asking, why did you pass my house today? And same thing with the second one. I noticed the roof had blown off. How did you know? Were you at my house? So again, there's nothing grammatically correct about them. We just need a little bit more information. Uh, let's add some conjunctions in there so we can use and. I passed your house today and I noticed the roof had blown off. So you let me know you passed my house, why and what you saw. And it makes it a little bit more exciting to read too. So that's a compound sentence. We use conjunctions to connect them. So let's go to the next one. All right. Mary had completed her run. She was covered in mud. I send you an email. Mary had completed her run. Fantastic. Whatever. But let's add something in there. Let's make it a little bit more exciting. Mary had completed her run and she was covered in mud. So we add that conjunction. It makes it a little bit more exciting to read. And now we kind of know what happened when Mary had finished her run. Let's take a look at number 3. The wind nearly blew John away. Oh, sorry to hear that. Okay. The second sentence, he decided to shelter in a nearby church. Why is he sheltering in a nearby church? Well, let's add a conjunction together. The wind nearly blew John away, so he decided to shelter in a nearby church. So we put it together, more exciting to read, and it makes sense. We kind of know what's going on with John. Those are some examples. I highly recommend you do a lot of practicing because, again, practice makes perfect. All right. The next one is just some answers, different things that you can use. As you know, with English, there's so many different ways to say something, write something. I used and on number 1, but you can also use but or so. Mary had completed her run, but she was covered in mud. So she was covered in mud. Again, many different ways to say and do something in English, which makes it confusing, but yet fun. All right, so we just talked about compound sentences. Let's talk about complex. It is complex, meaning it can be a little bit confusing. Again, practice makes perfect. Um, complex, one is more important than the other. So remember with what we just went over, we had 2 simple sentences. Both were totally fine. We put the conjunction together, then we start answering our own questions about the sentence. Complex sentences are going to be different. The reason why is we have 2 parts to them. We have a main clause and a subordinate clause. The main clause is the part that makes sense if it's standing by itself. It's the most important part of the sentence. If you divide it in half, the subordinate clause is confusing. It's probably not grammatically correct. So when you divide the sentence, you'll find the main part and you'll find the subordinate clause. But you need the subordinate clause to go with the main part so it all makes sense. And let's move on so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay. Mary thought that she could run to the bus stop despite her high heels. What is the main part of our sentence? Well, it is Mary thought that she could run to the bus stop. That's the main clause. That's the part that makes sense to us that can stand alone. If we pull out the subordinate clause, despite wearing her high heels, we have so many questions. It doesn't make sense. It's not really grammatically correct. So we have to put them together to make the sentence make sense. So we have our main clause and our subordinate clause. All right. Commas and complex sentences. Commas are so important. And we can obviously do another presentation on this if you would like more information. I'm going to give you a little tip that works for me. And remember, just because something works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you, and that's okay. You have to find what works best for you. And I'm full of ideas if you ever need some more tricks of the trade then. Okay, so what do we do with commas? Well, first of all, before we get into commas, let's talk about where the subordinate clause can go, because I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Subordinate clauses can go anywhere. It can go at the beginning, it can go in the middle, it can go at the end. Sometimes when it goes in the middle, we might call that an embedded clause, and we can get into that at another time. And so the main clause is in pink, subordinate clause is going to be written in blue. We're going to look at the same sentence 3 different ways. And what the difference is, we're moving that subordinate clause around. Kind of pay attention to where the commas are, because in the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the commas. Okay, first sentence. Even when it was snowing, Peter wanted to go for a walk. So our main clause is at the end, because if you pull the sentence apart, Peter wanted to go for a walk. That's the main part. Okay, why did Peter want to go for a walk? What's going on with the sentence? We've got questions. So we add the subordinate clause, even when it was snowing. Even when it was snowing does not make sense. We need more information. That's why we're going to add that main part. It answers our question. Peter wanted to go for a walk even when it was snowing. We know why Peter wanted to go for a walk, when everything we wanted to know about Peter going for a walk, he does it in the cold. Crazy. I'm not going to go for a walk in the snow. Messing with you. All right. Let's go to the next one. Peter wanted to go for a walk even when it was snowing. So now we put the subordinate at the end. So we started off with it at the beginning. Now we're putting it to the end. Peter wanted to go for a walk even when it was snowing. Even when it was snowing, Peter wanted to go for a walk. Both are fine, same meaning. Now let's look at the third way we can say this. Peter, even when it was snowing, wanted to go for a walk. Now we put it right in the middle. So as you can see, we can take the main clause and the subordinate clause, and we can do it 3 different ways here. So, and all of them are correct. It's dependent on how you want to structure your sentence. So you can use it beginning, middle, or end. All right, let's talk about those commas, because I am jibber-jabbering right now. All right. When, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip here. This may or may not work for you. When I feel like there has to be a pause in the sentence, that tells me to put my comma there. Now, there are rules to this though, because for example, when the subordinate clause comes at the beginning of a sentence, you're going to put a comma there. So for example, even when it was snowing, comma, Peter wanted to go for a walk. Our subordinate clause is at the beginning, but bam, I put my comma. The main clause goes at the end. But if I read the sentence, even when it was snowing, pause, Peter wanted to go for a walk, I know I've got to put my comma there. I like to use this trick because sometimes there's too many rules to remember when it comes to grammar. You've got your grammar rules, and then there's exceptions to some of those rules. And to be quite honest, it gets really confusing. So I like to learn some tricks along the way that kind of help me out. And this is what I've used ever since I was in primary school. When I feel like I have to pause in my sentence, I put my comma there. But if you're a person that does great with remembering rules and exceptions, that is amazing, and I'm very jealous. Just know subordinate clause at the beginning, you're going to use a comma after it. Now, when your subordinate clause comes in the middle, you're going to put your comma on both sides of it. So for example, Peter, comma, even when it was snowing, wanted to go for a walk. So the comma is going to go after snowing. If I read the sentence, I'm going to put my pauses in there. Peter, even when it was snowing, wanted to go for a walk. So I'm hearing that I feel like I have to pause, so I need to put those commas in there. But again, if you're following the rules and you can remember that, you're going to put it on both sides of that subordinate clause, before and after. When the subordinate clause comes at the end of the sentence, typically you don't need one. Peter wanted to go for a walk even when it was snowing, so you don't need one there. But just kind of know that if you're writing an email or whatever it is you're writing and you feel the need to pause, chances are you need to put a comma there. Hope this was helpful. This is a good way to get started on writing because every language learner, and I'm just going to say language, I'm not even going to say English because this is going to happen with any language you learn. And I'm noticing this with Spanish and other things. But my point is, you always start off very simple anyway because it's easier to understand. Some of my beginning people that I work with, they write very simple sentences on purpose because it's easier to understand instead of my wonderful babam sentences. So there's nothing wrong when you start off with simple sentences. It's just when we get further into our journey with English or whatever language you're learning with that you have to start to broaden it. You have to start making it sound better. And that's when we get into compound, complex, where to put the comma, blah, blah, blah. So start here, start working on how to make your sentences go from simple to obviously something with some oomph into them. Of course, there's more to sentence structure with our grammar, verbs, adverbs, blah, 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 but this is a good way to get started. If you have any more questions, concerns about this, always feel free to reach out to me. Or if there's a video on something like, hey, Amanda, I totally get the complex and compound sentence structure, but I'm kind of confused about adverbs or whatever, just let me know. I'd be glad to work with you or make a video for everyone to see. On that note, thank you. Have a great evening, morning, wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this, and we will talk later. Bye-bye.